Welcome to the Simply PHP Unscripted Podcast. I am the man behind the camera, Kyler Miles, and today I'm so happy to bring on Michael Tanner, the founder of Credible Leaders, which is a community that brings together people who are aspiring to be leaders and leaders who want to share their insights and knowledge on how to become an influential person within your company, within your community, what have you. And so on today's episode, Raph and Michael talk about leadership, accountability, and overall discipline during these hard COVID-19 quarantine times. So we hope this brings you guys value and how you can show leadership within your organization or just leadership in all aspects of your life. So hope you guys enjoy. Let's get started with the episode.
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Hey, see, Kyler, Michael's smarter than you. You could figure out.
Is Kyler struggling with the video? Is that the problem?
He clicked on the wrong link, so he was like, "Hey, it didn't work for me." Like,
I got you.
How's it going?
I'm good. How about you?
Not too bad.
Good.
Well, we're like people being confined for 3 weeks, 4 weeks now.
Yeah, no kidding. This work at home thing got cabin fever for sure. I never really appreciated how much I enjoyed going to the office and spending time with the team.
Oh, that's exactly my case. Long time ago, I did work for 2 years in my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was sleeping maybe 22 hours a day in my bedroom.
Right.
You know, just terrible. I didn't want to do that again, and now I'm kind of forced. Environment's much better now, but still, I'm definitely missing the team.
Yeah, at least the technology's at a point now that we can pretty easily stay in contact. You know, video conferences versus just phone calls and things like that. But yeah, it has its challenges in just kind of feeling claustrophobic a little bit, you know?
Yeah. You feel very lonely, and I don't know. I don't like it personally. Like, and the thing for me is when I sit early in the morning here,
Right.
I can go on a big straight 3, 4, 5 hours, full focus, but then I'm completely crashed.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time doing anything else. You know, but at the office, I always have communication. I have some interruptions. I can go for a walk. You know, I can.
Yeah,
oh boy.
I agree. For those really, really focused activities, this is great because you can sit down and you can undisturbed. You can just kind of really focus.
Absolutely.
You can turn off all your notifications and everything, and people can't just wander by your house the way they would your desk. But to your point, I mean, you just can't sustain that for an 8-hour day. You need that. You know, let me take my head up and go talk to someone. Let me interact with somebody. I agree. I need that desperately. And this is helping break up my day quite a bit. For me, it's right in the middle of the day here. So my morning was really, really focused on some activity. Then I get to have some fun with you guys, and then I'll get back to work later.
Exactly. What's the weather? What's your weather outside?
Oh, it's fabulous here. So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And right now it's about 78 or so degrees. Our biggest issue right now in Georgia is pollen. So all the trees are blooming and all that, and pollen is it's horrendous. You go outside at the end of the day and your car is yellow.
Wow, already. Here it's probably going to be mid or end of May, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure you guys are at least a good month or so behind us. This is quite early for us. I mean, usually this is not until about mid-April. It really started about a week and a half ago. So it's a little bit early, but this is typical for our, late March, April timeframe.
Yeah. Well, here it's about 50, 49.
Mm.
Blue skies, sun.
Yeah.
For us, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least that's at least warm enough to, you put on a jacket, but you can get outside for a little while.
Oh yeah, you need that sun. That's for sure.
Yes.
Oh boy, lucky that this is not happening January.
Yeah. In the dead of winter. Yeah. Agree.
That would be terrible.
No, I
At
agree.
least,
I agree.
at least people can just go outside and enjoy the sun a little bit or go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's a problem that we have here actually. There's so many people going outside for walks that now police start finding people.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting. I
yeah,
know it's really popular here for parks to have walking trails, as well as tennis courts and basketball courts and things like that. And they uh, they have closed down things like
yeah.
the basketball courts and the tennis courts and all, but they still have the walking trails open. But I think that's just because um, there's not enough people on them yet. To justify closing them down. But I'm sure, much like you, I mean, if they get populated enough and this thing is still going on, they'll probably close those as well.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully not. People need to go outside.
Yeah, yeah, no, you got to get outside. If I can't get out and be with my team, at least I can get outside and walk around, do
You
something
know,
outside for a little while.
it's completely off topic, but I don't know for you guys there, but here I'm worried about the impacts or the collateral impacts of this confinement,
Mm,
meaning not just on the economy side, but also anything that we don't know. Like, so for example, how many people are getting bankrupt these days or
yeah,
committing suicide because of stress and all of those things. I'm like, we cannot just ignore that.
yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that mental and emotional wear and tear is what I'm feeling the most, right? Again, it's just because I can't be in the office with the team. I can't sit and talk to people face to face. I mean, the video conferencing is wonderful, but there's something totally different about just being able to speak with people face to face. And here's the interesting thing about it. I'm an introvert. I'm a pretty strong introvert, but I just love, collaborating and being a part of a team so much. So yeah, there's definitely a mental and emotional wear and tear from us being here, alone, if you will, trying to work from home. And then, yeah, for sure, I'm sure there's lots of individual financial circumstances that this is creating. I mean, um, families who can't find childcare or school now, trying to do the homeschooling with their kids. And yeah, there's a lot of people, you know, trying to overcome and improvise and adapt to a totally new world. And yeah, I'm sure I'm with you. It's going to have a lot of ramifications, maybe that
Oh
today
yeah.
we don't even understand.
Oh no. And it's never going to be known exactly the amount,
Right. Yeah.
depressions and I don't know. Like last week I did, I wanted to go out and do something a little bit special for staff. So I went to get some pastries, fresh pastries from
Mm-hmm.
a French
Right.
pastry chef. And I went on the road to deliver to people
Yeah.
and just to see the faces and you could see that some were not feeling good these days. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and that made me feel good too for that day. But the next day, it's as if that joy the day before kind of made me crash the next day, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Well,
next
I
day.
mean, I think you know enough to know that my deal is leadership, and what
Yeah.
you've done is you've shown a tremendous level of leadership in just in the fact that you care about your team, and then you go the extra mile to actually go and meet them and deliver, a pastry or a gift or whatever it might be. You're
Yeah.
going that extra mile as a leader, especially in these times. One of the most important things that we can do is actually care about the people on our team
Yeah.
and take action to show that care. Um, that's huge in this time frame, especially to try to combat a little bit of that emotional and mental wear and tear that this is going to have that we just talked about.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm, no matter how am I able to, control or manage my mental state, it's still hard for me, it's
Yeah.
hard for
Yeah.
everyone.
Agree.
Doesn't matter who you are, it's still hard to stay home and not socialize with people, and it's difficult. And I'm
Yes.
like
Yes.
you, like I'm super introvert. I'm from like being extremely shy, not talking to anyone, and I had to progress along, like make a lot of progress along my,
Right.
early 20s, 30s, and everything I do now is an effort still.
Mm. Yeah.
But when I do it, I feel extremely good.
Hmm.
So whenever I'm stressed
Yeah.
about something at the office and I just go out and I start chatting with someone, not only makes me forget about it, but it just makes me feel good. That
Yes.
connection is good. Now I
Yeah.
don't have that these days. So
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
wake up stressed in one morning, I don't have that. I cannot just go, okay, yeah, we can exchange like this. It's
Right.
good, but it's
Right.
not the same.
You just brought to mind a really important principle I think a lot of people overlook from time to time, and that is they believe that feelings then lead to actions,
Hmm.
but it's actually the exact opposite, right?
Exactly.
To the point you said, you don't necessarily feel happy, but then you go and do something, right? You do something for your team, and you do something very intentionally or purposeful, right? You just know you should do something for your team. Take them a gift, express appreciation, whatever it is. You do something, you take the action, and then the feeling of happiness then follows that. You
Yeah.
don't wait around until you feel happy and then you go take action. No, you take action, and then the feeling that you're pursuing will follow after that.
Well, to support what you're saying, and that's going to probably sound super weird what I'm going to say, but anyway, I'm saying it anyway. I'm full transparency, and everything we do, like with Kyler, and it's all about bringing value to people, but also
Hmm.
not being fake, showing them we're
Absolutely.
just like you.
Right.
uh, it's very, very rare that I'm looking forward recording a podcast like this.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
super rare. Like I know I have to do it. I know it's going to bring value to people. I know I'm probably going to enjoy it, but the day before, the few hours before, I'm like, eh. And then I start doing it,
Totally
and
get
three
it.
minutes later, I'm in. It's good. I feel
I
great.
I totally get it. It's like exercise. I mean, none of
Yeah.
us just, oh, I just love to do it. I want to do it. Occasionally we love it and want to do it, but there's definitely those mornings that we get up and oh, that's the last thing I want to do today is exercise. But then in the middle of it, and then definitely afterwards, you just feel better about it. And I totally empathize with you as it relates to podcasting. I do a lot of it, and sometimes it just feels like the grind of it, just
Yeah.
you're always doing it, you're always doing it kind of thing. But then, like you say, I get on a call with someone and we start kind of nerding out on leadership or whatever other topics that interest me. And before you know it, I'm all energized and happy to be there,
That's exactly
which is
that.
already the case here. So no, I'm with you. I totally understand that.
Oh yeah, no, it's so funny. But you know what? That's been a wrong expectation I had for so many years by
Mm-hmm.
reading all of those books behind there, and
Mm-hmm.
and of trying to make me look forward things, being motivated, being this, being that.
Yeah.
Whereas actually it doesn't exactly work this way. You're only my wife, I see my wife through the window. She's training outside now, and but for her, she's really looking forward training. She's never
Mm-hmm.
looking in the morning say I don't want to train today. No, she's like I have to train because I'm just gonna get crazy.
Right.
And she's looking forward to it. It's not my case at all. And it's not my case at so many things. I have to push myself to do things, and that's something I ended up realizing later is that very rarely you're going to be looking forward to something that you have to do, and even if it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But during and after, that's when the joy comes from, with and Kyler came to train with me one or two times, and wake up at 4. I'm at the gym starting at 5 with my trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have that these days, so I'm panicking in my head.
Right. Even the exercise routines are throwing a curveball here. I mean, they have to do it at home now. They don't necessarily have the equipment that they once worked out with, and
Yeah.
certainly don't have a trainer or don't have an exercise partner to go to the gym with. Um, and then just the motivation to do it alone when no one's watching, right? I mean, nobody's there at 5 a.m. to know at your house, are you working out or not? But to have that discipline and that purposefulness about yourself. And again, you don't necessarily want to do that alone and by yourself, but you feel a lot better about it afterwards.
Oh yeah. Well, discipline, you know, I'm told often that I'm extremely disciplined, but at the same time, I don't feel I am. I'm just able to do things when I don't want to do things.
Yeah.
And I just tell my brain that I want to do it anyway. And that's what happened with working out with my trainer. It took me a good 5 to 6 months before I don't try to find an excuse in the morning.
Yeah.
And actually having accountability to him makes me want to go because I don't want to let him down.
Right. I totally get that. Yeah. And when you have those other people there, and especially that accountability and all, that's a big driver for doing the things you don't necessarily want to do. But you'll feel better about it afterwards. But then probably more important in my mind is you have people there with you or depending on you and waiting on you, that kind of thing. That's a huge driver for me as well.
Well, I think it's a driver. It's a big driver for most people, and actually, especially during these days with working from home, if you have no accountability set up,
right,
everyone's going to be slacking off.
Yeah, no,
even the greatest worker.
You're exactly right. I mean, it is. It's that lack of just that lack of being present with your team, because we can't all sit on Zoom conference calls all day long. I mean, that's unrealistic. We're not going to do that. And so what about those time periods in between where we're not on a Zoom call? Well, I know there's no one going to just kind of wander by my desk and to see me. So who knows? I'm sitting on the sofa watching television or something in between calls. It's really easy to fall into that. And I don't necessarily think we should shame ourselves if that's the case, but we got to get back up and get the work done, obviously.
Yeah. How many, because you were saying that, you have team members and you're not with them. How many people do you have to deal with?
So my team currently, I have 6 direct reports. And then all total, my team is about 165 large.
Wow.
And pretty much 100% of that now is remote workers.
Wow.
Yeah, they have to go in the office occasionally because I do have some electrical engineers that are doing some hardware board testing and just different things like that. So they have to go into the office occasionally for some of the hardware lab activities and things like that. But for the most part, 100% working from home.
Yeah, and how do you guys ensure that not only they're fulfilled, they feel great, they can work efficiently, and they actually can perform normally? How do you guys ensure? What mechanism do you guys have in place?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost we have a really, really good project management organization that does really, really good job of properly planning out our projects, right? So we have all the details of our projects such that we can see almost in a real-time basis, what might be going off course or work that might not be getting done or something like that. I mean, our project plans are that detailed that we can kind of see pretty much right away something not looking right. So if someone at home, they're not able to get something done in the timely manner, or maybe they're just slacking off and not getting it done, we can identify that pretty quickly through those project plans. But then throughout the various levels of the leadership organization, we've added just the extra touch points with our people just to make sure that they are okay. And a lot of times that's just a checking in to say, do you have everything you need? Are you able, even though you're at home, technically, can you still do your job efficiently and all that? Any troubles with the VPN, or any troubles checking your code in, or all sorts of check-ins like that. But then to your point earlier, also, we're adding a little bit of checking in on the emotional and mental side of that as well. So how are you handling being cooped up at home all day? Are you able to take breaks? Or so we're just having to add a little bit of that, those kind of checkpoints in with our Zoom calls and video meetings and things like that as well.
What do you think? Because I understand that leaders have a lot to do, and they have basically all the responsibility. It's all their fault, obviously, if something doesn't work.
Right.
But at the same time, I also know that staff needs to collaborate to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your opinion, how can someone actually stand out during these days?
Yeah. So a few things there as a leader. And first of all, I completely agree with your sentiment that, if something goes wrong, it's the leader's fault. Anytime I'm in a introductory type of setting and I tell people that, I lead an R&D group or whatever, I will tell them if something goes right, something goes good, it's because I have a tremendous engineering team. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. It's on me. So I completely agree with that sentiment. But to your question of, well, how do you just check in with folks, and how do you ensure things are going well? Then again, we just keep it consistent. We lead the same way, or we have the same leadership principles, but we just enact them differently. So for instance, I do one-on-one meetings with all 6 of my direct reports once a week. And it would be easy in this remote world to kind of forego those and say, well, yeah, we won't do that. But no, we do that. We still do that. I still stick to that cadence of one-on-one meetings with each of my direct reports. I just now do it over video conferencing. And I much prefer also video conferencing versus just a telephone call. Just because, again, we get to see each other. I can see your reactions to things that we're talking about. These days I get to see your children because they may wander into the room and just different things like that. And that's another part of this. You've got to be flexible to those things, right? You've got people at home that also have their children at home, and you can't get upset when their 8-year-old comes running into the room in the middle of your meeting, right? You just kind of got to go with that. But really, I tell everybody, just keep your leadership principles intact. Just do them differently now because we're all remote. And probably the final thing I would say is we just got to be really, really super clear on our expectations of our people while they are at home. We got to be flexible. We got to be empathetic to their situation. Again, they may have kids at home or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But we got to be really clear that, hey, when you're working, I need to be able to find you, online. I need to be able to chat with you, or I need to be able to call you, or right. We just need to be really clear on those expectations so that when people do go home and now they're alone, they're not questioning, what does my boss expect of me now that I'm here at home? They need to know that clearly. Yeah. And then above and beyond that, just keep your normal leadership routine.
Yeah, I think we all got caught off guard with that, obviously. Did you guys have, or prior to this, is your staff was able to work from home, or?
So technically we've always had the capability. And in fact, traditionally we've been rather flexible with remote working. I mean, we usually do it on a kind of an exception basis. Someone, they've got a contractor come into their house, sometime tomorrow. They don't exactly know when they need to be there. Okay, fine. Just work from home that day. We've had a few individuals that had various life circumstances that said, I need to work from home one day a week. So we've had a little bit of that. Now, one thing that we did struggle with was just the magnitude, the number of people all working remote, and things like our VPN, our network, and things like that were a struggle early on. Our IT organization did a great job to catch up to that pretty quickly, but it's not totally foreign to us to work from home. But again, it gets to that mental and emotional side of things where we're not interacting face to face with one another. I think that's been the biggest struggle once we got over those initial IT hurdles.
How do you feel after? When are people going to be still wanting to work remotely, or they're going to be like, no, I'm enjoying the office, it's going to last a few months, or
you know, that's a really interesting question, and I think I do believe that people will view remote working totally differently after this than a lot of them probably did beforehand. Now I know some people were, you know, completely on board with the remote working, do it 100% of the time, you know, no big deal. Others, and I would probably fall into this other camp of, I just like being together. I like being in a team. I like being, you know, in close quarters so that I can easily come to your desk or look over your shoulder and that kind of thing. But I think people will think differently of remote working going forward. And really, I think the level of magnitude in the mindset shift probably depends on how long this thing lasts. You know, if we're back in the office next week, it probably won't change the mindset too much of leaders that are kind of set on, you know, having their team there in the office. But if this thing lingers on another month, 2 months, even longer, then I think that level of mindset for leaders will change pretty drastically. But I think more people will be open to it for sure after this, because I do think you can work remote and still get your job done, get your task done. And for the most part, I'm a firm believer in, you know, in team members being responsible enough to get their work done. And I think it'll end positively as it relates to getting the work done. And I think that'll be what changes the mindset of some leaders to enable remote working even more, just because the work's going to get done in this case.
Yeah. Are they saying or speculating about when you guys are going to be able to go back to the office?
It's no, not really. I mean, it's anybody's guess at this point. I think for me personally, what I do is I kind of take my cues from what some of the other institutions are doing. So for instance, all the schools here in Georgia and maybe even all of the United States, I'm not sure, but they've essentially stopped school for the rest of the year. And so that's till late May, right? So, um, so that kind of gives me some indication of, well, they expect this thing to linger into May. Um, you know, so I just kind of take my cues from some of those kind of institutions as to how long I think it might last. But for the moment, we're not projecting at all when we might be able to get all back together as a team in the office.
Yeah. Here, the first date was April 13th.
Yeah.
And now it's May 3rd.
Well, it started here with, hey, we're going to go for 2 weeks. And then, you know, that quickly started to snowball into longer times. I think I'm like you. I think it'll be at least May before we get back.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not going to be extended again.
Agree.
I think you're going to like this because you said something that made me think of something. And I saw a post about one or 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn. Someone's basically saying that if you basically don't trust your staff members to work from home, then why did you hire them in the first place? Totally. I'm like, okay, that's very generic. That's very large. It's provocative. I don't like that post. But then I had a second thought, and I think I was doing a live about 2 weeks ago, and it popped in my head. And I think you're gonna like that. Yeah. I think the role of a leader, it's not a matter of trusting upfront and during and at home and all of that, but it's also to create an environment where you do not give a chance to fail to your staff. Because that's the thing, like just before we started, we planned to go home, we were saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it. We want you guys to be accountable. We want you guys to check in on Slack in the morning, say hi to people. We're going to randomly call you. You know, just it's not a matter of not trusting. It's a matter of making them feel accountable for what they're doing so that we don't give them a possibility of slacking or just not performing. If you give a rope to someone, don't be surprised if that person hang himself,
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be surprised if they actually use that rope that you gave them. Yeah. No, I totally agree and understand. And I understand the sentiment too of, I can't see what my team members are doing when they're at home. So I can't gauge whether or not they're working proficiently or effectively or whatever, because I can't see it. So I get that. I understand that. And I understand also the absolute, if you will, or the extreme that's mentioned in the quote of, well, if you can't trust them at home, you shouldn't have hired them to start with. That's taking it to the extreme, I think, because, you have a new hire, no matter how good your interview and recruiting process is on day one, you just don't really know what you have in a new team member there. So you can't just say, well, day one, I would trust you to work remotely necessarily. So I get both dynamics, and where I land is you've got to create, as the leader, you've got to create this happy medium, or this happy middle. I'm all about the fact that leadership is about relationship. It's not about authority. It's not about title or position or anything like that. Leadership is about influencing others. Here's the definition I use of leadership: influencing others towards a shared goal. And I use the word influencing there because it carries with it the notion of a willingness, right? I'm willing to follow you as my leader. So you're influencing me. I'm willing to follow you as my leader. And so you've got to build, in my opinion, as a leader, these relationships inside of your team such that it doesn't matter if that person is working remote or if that person is working, right there beside you in the desk beside you. They have the same feeling of relationship, the same feeling of accountability, the same feeling of empowerment, and being equipped to do their job done. To the point you were saying, they have to feel like they're set up for success, not failure. And I believe you do that as a leader mainly through relationship, not through process or authority or title or something like that. And so if you have those relationships established in your team, then with confidence, you can send them home and say, get to work, get your job, get the job done. I trust you that you'll get the job done there. Even, in our case, even though we were sending that large number of people home, I was able to trust these guys will go home and they'll get the job done. But also I was uncertain that there would be technical issues just because of the number of people all at once. But I was also very trusting that those individuals would overcome those hurdles together and then, getting the work done. So I believe you got to meet in the middle there with good relationships that enables the trust necessary to send people home and do their job there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's simple as that to me. It's
yeah.
Would you feel that, because I feel that everyone should try to be a leader in some ways, although someone is not, feeling that he is or she is naturally. I think leadership, the main quality of a leader or leadership is empathy. And Kyler had wrote me a question and to try to basically cover that is, what can people do to develop better leadership skills? Well, what if someone doesn't have much empathy?
Yeah.
How can that person become the leader?
Yeah, no, very good point. And I do believe that everyone can be a leader. I believe leadership is a learned skill. It's not, I don't think you just have to be born a leader and either you won the lottery or you didn't, right? You was either born a leader or you weren't. I don't believe that's the case. Now, some people have personality traits or characteristics in their personality that may make it easier to be a leader. I totally get that and agree with that. But I do believe leadership is learned and anyone can learn it. I agree with you as well that empathy, I mean, it's a huge part of being a leader. Again, leadership for me is relationship. It's not a position or authority or anything like that. It's relationship. And I've got to be able and willing to create the relationships necessary for me to foster empathy for your situation, right? Empathy is, I understand your situation. Well, if I don't have a relationship with you such that I even understand your situation, then I can't be empathetic to that. In our team, for instance, when we went remote, I had individuals that were going home as a single parent, and their child's school was closed, and so now their first grader, their second grader, their third grader is at home with them as a single parent, and they got to get their work done. But if I didn't have a relationship with that person enough to know you're a single parent and you have a 9-year-old and school just got closed, then I can't empathize with their situation of now working at home because I didn't first have that relationship with them, right?
Yeah.
And so I believe empathy first starts with that relationship. Know that person well enough so that you can understand their situation, and then you can be empathetic to them. And then I would also agree with you sometimes that you don't always feel like being empathetic to your team members. I've often characterized it this way. Sometimes you don't want to care about your team members, but you have to care about your team members in order to be a good leader. So what do you do when you don't want to be empathetic with your team or your team member, but you know you need to be? Well, I'll just go back to what we said earlier. Action first and then feeling. Just take the action to build the relationship. Take the action to be empathetic to their situation, and then you'll start to feel like you can be empathetic to them. So don't wait around for you to feel like, oh, now I care about my team. No. Go and do the action to care about your team, and lo and behold, you'll start to have those feelings of caring for your team as well.
That's such a good point. It's as if, whether it's motivation, discipline, inspiration, empathy, all of that, for some people, it's going to just be natural. Mm. They're naturally empathetic. They're naturally disciplined. Mm-hmm. Some have one, some have more, some don't have any. And I really like that thing about you take you do the first step, and you let that step create what you're looking for. And
right.
I really like that. Really like that. It's true for everything. It's true for me, for example, on training. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I never liked to train.
Right.
Never ever. So.
But you like the feeling afterwards.
That's it.
Right. You like the feeling of accomplishment. You like the feeling of, better health. You like those feelings. And again, those feelings only come after you've taken that action.
Exactly. How someone working remotely actually show leadership during these days, during the quarantine?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question. And again, I think it's, you do the same things that you normally would do. You just now do them differently. Okay. Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier about keep consistent with the meetings that you normally would have had as a leader. So like me, again, if as a leader, I'm doing those weekly one-on-one meetings, well, keep that cadence, keep that schedule, but I'm now doing those obviously very differently. Right. I think the second thing, especially in this remote time, is you got to be empathetic to the situations that you alluded to, empathy being such an important aspect of leadership. And it is. And right now in this remote working environment, this kind of pandemic chaos that we're in right now, I think you have to be very, very empathetic with your team members right now. Yeah. Again, that's got to start with those relationships. If you've got that single parent that's got now a toddler running around, or maybe you have a team member who has, aging parents that maybe have some kind of medical condition that makes them extremely susceptible to this. then you got to be empathetic to that. You got to understand those situations. So that individual may be, extra afraid right now. They may be extra cautious, especially if it's a situation where they do need to come to the office or something like that. They're afraid that they may take this back into their family situation. And so again, you've got to know enough about your team members, have a good enough relationship with your team members that you can, you can be empathetic with those situations. But I think one of the most important things to do right now that we're already in this pandemic situation, is just ask open-ended questions every time you get a chance of your team members about how they're doing, how they're feeling, what are they worried about. I have leaders that tell me, well, I don't have that kind of relationship where I know what's worrying my team members. Okay, well, here's an idea. Ask them. Just ask them. So get on the Zoom call with them or whatever, in your one-on-one meetings, your weekly team meetings or whatever, and just kind of, say, look, I don't know your family situation right now. You may have aging parents or little children. I don't know, but tell me, in this environment we're working in right now, what's your biggest worry? And especially a worry maybe I can help with, right? That's showing empathy to them, even when you don't yet have the good enough relationship. And that's also building the relationship, by the way.
You just brought up a good point that I think is going to bring a lot of value to people, because not so many people understand what is an open question. Mm-hmm. And this is something I've learned in my 20s when I was reading a lot of books. Right. And I understood at that point what is really an open question, and so many people don't understand that, and will just ask very close question that just going to require a yes or no, mm-hmm. as opposed to be asking a really open question. And some people that might be actually listening or watching this are like, but what is it? Yeah, and I'd like you to give a few examples. What is, like, basically a closed question? How can you open it to a nice question, an open question? Because you get a for example, I'm kind of answering a piece. Anyway, you will jump. But I just remember now in the book I had read years ago, the person was explaining in a restaurant, said, enjoying your food? Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. As opposed to a chef going to is there anything I could have done for you today that would have make you feel or experience your moment much better?
Right.
Well, as you're saying it.
Yeah. No,
big difference.
This is a very good point. And these closed-ended questions, they have a number of different faults to them. One, you're not really getting to the root of what you're hoping to get to with those questions. But two, especially when you have a leader subordinate relationship going on and you ask a closed-ended question, then that subordinate, in most of those cases, is going to answer that question the way they think that leader wants them to answer. Because when it's a yes or no question, then I've got a 50-50 chance of picking the one that you want to hear from me. And so if, as your leader in a situation like this, I ask you the question, are you doing okay? That's a yes or no question. And as my leader, I think it's a safe assumption you want to hear from me, yes. Right. So when my leader says in a situation like this, are you doing okay? I'm probably going to say yes. It's almost like, when you walk down the hall and you say, how are you doing? Fine. Everybody says fine, right? Because that's what they assume that person wants to hear. But as a leader, when it's a yes or no question, a closed-ended question, then they're going to guess which one you want to hear as their leader, and that's the one they're going to give you. But if you open that question up, it's no longer a yes or no question. If it's an open-ended question, it's, hey, tell me what you're worried about today. And then just stop. Just be quiet. Don't answer the question for them. Right?
Don't propose an answer.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of times leaders they'll overcome the closed-ended question. Right. Yeah. They'll overcome the closed-ended question and ask an open-ended question. but then they get uncomfortable really quickly with the silence. And like you say, then they start asking those closed-ended questions as follow-up that lets the person off the hook, if you will. Ask that open-ended question, give them time to think about it, and just sit and listen, actually listen to the answer. But, so again, in a situation like we're in these days, if I'm on a Zoom call with someone, hey, I don't know your family situation, and you may have kids there, elderly parents, or whatever. I don't know how much this coronavirus thing is worrying you. So just tell me, I mean, what are you really worried about today?
Yeah.
And then just sit and listen, right? Give them time. Cause I mean, that question is going to kind of catch them off guard, probably. So they're going to need some time to process it and think about it. But then to your point, they're going to come back with, well, I'm a little worried about, my mother lives next door and she had cancer last year, and I think she's really, really prone to this. And so I got to really protect her. Right.
Exactly.
I never would have gotten that out of, are you okay? They would have just said yes.
I'm searching the name of a guy because you probably heard that. I forgot his name. Jesus, what is his name? He's pretty known. And he was on I'm really, really bad with names.
Me too.
And even for people that are known. What's his name? He was on his show on Tom Billier's show at some point. And he was explaining when you interview someone, basically to ask that person, what are you selfishly expecting from me?
Oh, that's a good question.
And that person like, well, I want to, no, selfishly, no filter. Tell me, selfishly, what you want from me. And I've learned a lot from those couple questions that he was saying during that podcast. And it made me, during a conversation with, let's call it our HR guy, we call it Vibe Manager. I really don't like HR in names, so we call it the Vibe Manager. And a few months ago, we were talking, and I said, you know what? When you sit regularly with someone, ask very specific, weird, open questions. For example, one that I really like is, what would make you quit the company?
Yeah.
As opposed to, how's it going? How's it going? You're going well, cool.
Right. Are you happy here? Yeah.
Exactly. This is bullshit question.
Yeah.
But when you have someone, what would make you quit the company? Force the person to think differently and say, you know what? Probably money, or probably an annoying project, or probably, surprisingly, we got a few answers like nothing.
Yeah, agree.
That was great. It was fun to hear. But
well, that's incredible insight on the teamwork or the culture, the environment that you have within the team. That's incredible insight on just to define the culture of the team when you get responses from questions like that.
Well, for sure, we're not perfect, right?
Of course.
And even these days, I find that my leadership capabilities are being affected by me being depressed a little bit at home, and I don't feel like calling too much people. So look, I'm human, right? And I think and even for our employees, when they or even any employees working from home now, that feeling of, oh, I don't feel like it, or I don't feel performing, or I don't feel like I'm doing well. That's a thing. That's fine. We're all human, and that's okay. Once you realize it, you need to step up and do something about it, right?
Yes.
And that is what's going to be differentiating the winner from the loser. And just before we went to work remotely, I was saying to some of our leads, you know what? After this crisis, and that was 3 weeks ago, I said, this crisis is going to bring us good opportunities to separate who's going to survive in the company and who's not going to survive in the company, who's going to be the heroes and who's not going to be, the hero. And so far, that's exactly what's happening. There's guys that are doing incredibly good.
Right. Yep.
And they're going to be progressing, winning the company because of that, those times, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a podcast, I co-host another podcast with a guy, and he and I were talking about kind of leading through a crisis like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we made the point that it's in a crisis like this where a person's leadership and performance are just magnified, right? During the good times, your leadership skills may not be recognized by people all that well. But during a crisis, your leadership skills or lack thereof is going to be magnified, and people will see it tremendously. The same thing applies to individual contributors as well, right? Everything's going well. You have an individual contributor, you don't necessarily know if their performance is good or not. They kind of hide in the crowd maybe, or something like that. You don't necessarily notice it. But then in a crisis like this, man, those people that really step it up and those people that really perform, they just stand out. You see, it's magnified. You see them. And so a situation like this, it will certainly shed light on who are the good leaders or who are the good performers in your team for sure.
Well, look, here's a good example of someone that's standing out in our company, and randomly, one of our clients had some issues over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and just reach out to that guy directly.
Mm-hmm.
Not to me, not to my business partner, not to the project manager, nothing, like just to that person directly. So
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday, he worked, a few hours over time. And yesterday we got a big shout out from the client, and it goes as follow. So the client wrote to my business partner, I wanted to let you know how much we appreciate him and his work. His expertise and problem solving has made him a leader on our team. On Sunday, we had multiple major production issues due to so many orders. And he worked with us all day Sunday on figuring out and implementing solutions so we could process orders on Sunday night. He really he really helped us out. I really appreciate it. But you see, no one asked him to do that.
Right. No, that's awesome. And that's exactly what I say. I mean, those individuals in a situation like this, they're going to stand out. I'll tell you a quick story that happened with us. I have it on my list to handwrite a thank you note to this gentleman, but have a team member that very technically sound, and he's worked remote many times before. Well, another lady on our team, she's never worked remote before. And those two, they happen to live rather close together, I believe. And so this guy went over to her house and spent 4.5 hours with her, getting her VPN set up, getting all the different tools set up such that they would work. And it took so long because she actually uses a lot of software tools that he doesn't use. And so he took the time to spend with her and really figure out all her tools and how to make them work over the VPN and just different things like that. And then, then he went home and she sent a note, an email to his manager that then made its way to me that said, hey, just want to let you know, this guy came over and spent 4.5 hours with me, helping me get set up to work remote. And now everything's working. I feel comfortable that I can work. And they're not even in the same team. They're not even in the same department, right? So that guy stepping up in a situation like this, you see how it just gets magnified. You just see those things happening in situations like this, especially.
Oh, yeah. Being a leader doesn't mean to stand out and be publicly known as a leader. Doesn't mean to be famous or to be recognized or acknowledged. It doesn't mean that. That for me is some sort of, he's a leader. He took the lead.
Yes.
He took action and he solved the problem without bugging anyone with that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Leadership is not a title or position or anything at all. Rank, it's not any of those things. It's influence, and in that situation I just described for you. So our goal as a team here is, while we're remote, to still be able to get our work done, to still deliver on projects and things like that. So that's our goal. And he went over to her house and worked with her to achieve that goal. And now she's influenced. She's convinced. She's persuaded now. She's encouraged even, hey, we can do this. We can achieve this goal of getting our work done, even though we're in this remote work setting. And so before that, she wasn't so sure of that. She was having all kind of problems, but he went in and influenced her from, from afraid she couldn't get her work done to now convinced and even encouraged. Yeah, I can do this. We can get this done. That influence is leadership. And again, he doesn't have a title. She doesn't report to him. They're not even in the same department. But I would submit to you, he has been a leader. He has led her into accomplishing this goal that we as a team have.
Exactly. And that is a misconception sometimes, I find. And I had this a long time ago too, that, I was seeing being a leader such as a big thing, such as you have to check all the box in order to be a leader. And I'm sure that there's natural leaders out there that don't know they are, and they don't know how to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and someone might feel like, I want to have a great impact in my organization. I want to show some leadership abilities, but I don't know how. I don't know how to do it. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do it. And so what could we tell them? What could we tell them in order for them to just unleash those capabilities? And you don't have to be eccentric and be Tony Robbins, and you don't have to,
Yeah. One of the things I would say to a person like that, and I totally get it, to some degree, that's my story, especially in the software development world. Early on as a software developer, I just wanted to solve a big problem for the company. Just give me a big problem. Let me write software and solve that problem. As soon as I did that, I wanted a bigger problem, and then a bigger problem, and then a bigger problem. And I kept asking for bigger problems until it got to the point the problems were big enough I couldn't solve them on my own. I needed a team. And then the company gave me a team. Well, now I'm a software developer, but I'm also a leader, and I got to do both, right? So that's kind of my evolution as well. But what I would say to you is those individuals that don't currently have a quote title related to leadership or a position related to leadership, but they want to become a leader. They want to be a leader. Again, remember, it's about influencing others towards a shared goal. That's leadership. And so what I would submit to you is take action, do things to influence others toward that shared goal. Oftentimes when I teach and coach around this, I'll have people respond back to me, well, I've offered to do this for them, or I've offered to do that for them. No, don't offer, do it, right? This guy that I was talking about earlier, he didn't offer to go over to her house and get everything set up. He did it. He went over there, knocked on the door and said, hey, I'll help you get your VPN set up. He just did it. Right. And so, I would say just do the things necessary to influence other people, whether they're defined as your team or not. Influence those other people towards whatever the goal your team has or your group has or your company has. Just do the things necessary to influence them towards that. And you're being a leader, and that will become recognized. And before you know it, then you'll become, you'll be given those titles or positions or whatever you're seeking. You'll be giving those things as leaders, but you got to first take the action to lead first.
And try to spot the unexpected,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a big aspect of leadership, is seeing the unseen, right? Recognizing the things that other people don't recognize and taking action towards those things. Sure.
Yeah. And doing things that no one expects from you is a good way to be acknowledged as a leader.
Oh, totally agree with that. I mean, as a leader, you can never feel like you're above doing any task that you're asking someone else to do. There's a really there's a really popular saying, and I don't know who to accredit this to, but it goes something along the lines of, if you feel like service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. So if you feel like, no, I can't do that task, or I can't do this, or I can't do that because I've got a title, or I'm the leader, you got to be in that situation where you're willing to do anything that you're asking anyone else to do.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. We're close to already be an hour in, believe it or not.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel a lot better about this podcast now that we've done it than I was leading up to it, just like you.
I think we're gonna have to do that again. Is there any other points you would like to bring up? Because I think you had some points on your list, so I want to make sure that you cover everything that you had that could bring value to people. So,
well, listen, I mean, so leadership is my gig, right? That's my thing, and I'm a firm believer that leadership development is what differentiates us in the corporate world, in the engineering world, in the software development world. I really believe that leadership development is going to differentiate us and get you the career growth or the title or the responsibility or the team that you want, right? I believe that's in leadership development. And here's why I believe that, especially in the world that we're familiar with of software development. Everyone out there, if they're any type of good software developer, they're doing the industry specific skill set and learning, right? They're going to the conferences, they're reading the books, they're looking at the latest frameworks that are available, and right, they're learning all of those software development skill sets just like everyone else is. And so if that's all you're doing, then you're in a mode that I call career survival. You're just surviving because you're doing all the same industry specific learning that everyone else is doing. But if you'll take on yourself, in addition to industry specific learning, I'm not saying you can throw away all of your technical books. I'm not saying that at all. You still have to do that. But if you'll add to that leadership development, now your team, now your company knows, like in my case, they can give you a bigger problem than you can do by yourself. And they can also give you a team that you can lead through that problem, through solving that problem. And so I would just submit to you that in no matter what industry you're in, sales, PHP development, whatever it is, leadership development would differentiate you from the rest of the crowd and get you the career advancement that you're looking for.
Exactly. Well, that's a good closing. I like that.
Good.
Well, Michael, that was such a pleasure. We haven't spoke together, right?
Right.
Just before that, Kyler said we have to do a podcast with Mike. So, and I'm glad we did. I'm glad he found you, or you found him. I'm not sure. So,
I'm not sure. Oh, I remember how. Yeah, we found each other in a podcast community. That's right. I remember now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that was, and even for me, like you said things that I'm like, it's true. I forgot about those.
Right.
So it's a win-win-win conversation, I find.
Well, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really do. Again, like exercising, I kind of lead into these things almost questioning and wondering, but then I get in and we're talking and we're nerding out on leadership and things like that. And I just get encouraged by it. So, and I'm all about, I just want to serve the audience, your audience of listeners. I want to serve them in some way, give them some value in some way. And so that's what energizes me and why I feel better about these things after I've done them. And I would encourage you and the rest of the listeners, connect with me any way you can. My big deal right now is I'm hosting a community. So you can go to credibleleaders.com and there's a community link there at the top. And this is a community, it's a very diverse community of leaders as well as newbies to leadership. And it's just a safe place to learn leadership. And so I've just encouraged the listeners, check me out there, engage with me there. You can find it again at credibleleaders.com.
That's awesome. Michael, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I'm sure we're going to do something again.
I hope so. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Michael.